everybody, and it's Bernie Wall here. I'm an IELTS trainer specializing in Band 7 and 8 and working with students who have taken the exam a few times and not got the score that they want. Now, if you saw my last video, you'll know that I was talking about working with teachers. And I just want to do a little series of 3 videos or so about the experience of working with an IELTS teacher, just to give you an idea about how it can be beneficial and also why it's something you should consider. And I mentioned last week that a lot of students are reluctant to work with teachers because maybe they had a bad experience or for many other reasons. But I think it can save you a lot of time and it can save you a lot of repeated exams. And also most IELTS teachers are actually experts in their field. I've been an IELTS teacher for over 20 years and I know a lot about the exam, and I used to be an examiner also. So I do have a lot of knowledge and experience about the exam, which I'm able to pass on to those students that I work with. Now, I'm not suggesting that you come and work with me. I'm sure that there are lots of other teachers that you know or that you have access to that you might want to work with, and that's perfectly fine. If you do want to work with me, then I would love to speak to you about that, and I would love to support any of you in your exam. So today I'm just going to share with you about some students who really got themselves into a bit of a pickle, who got themselves into hot water, if you like, by continuing to work on their IELTS, but didn't seek the help that they actually did need, and how things went a little bit wrong for them. And I hope that that just explains a little bit how working with a teacher, far from being a waste of money or anything like that, can actually help you a lot. Okay, so I've got, as ever, a little slideshow to illustrate the points I want to make. So how long are you prepared to wait to get your IELTS? Can you wait another year? Can you wait 2 years? Or can you wait 10 years? And this is a question that I think you need to start asking yourself if you've taken the exam 2 or 3 times and you still haven't got there. I would say in general, if your English is quite good, if you're around B2 and you want to get 7 or 8, you should be looking at around 6 months on average, unless you're only looking at help with, say, writing, in which case you can do it a little bit more quickly. But if you're around 6, 6.5 and you want to get 7, then you should be looking at around 6 months, I would say, to be absolutely certain. But obviously it depends where you are, and the students I work with, I always talk to them and we have a conversation first to see what the problems are, where they are, what they feel about their progress, and then we put in place a plan to work together and get them to where they need to be. Okay, so I'm going to tell you about a particular student called Zara. She's not my student. She was actually the student of another teacher that I know, and she passed her exam. Whoops, sorry, I don't know what happened there. She passed her exam to go to Canada. She needed 7 and she passed the exam, and she's now preparing the process to move to Canada. And obviously she's over the moon. She finally got the 7. And she's very happy. She's preparing all the papers and there's a lot of excitement. And she can't wait. But it took her 6 years to get that 7. And that's kind of the blow, you know. It's all exciting now, but it did actually take her 6 years to get the exam. 6 years is a long time. You know, if you're trying to go to Canada, for example, and each year you're getting older, that can have an impact on the score that they require. So 6 years can have a big impact. Luckily, she was very young and she didn't have a family, so she was a little bit luckier than a lot of people. But during those 6 years, she took lots of IELTS tests. I don't know exactly how many, but lots. She also bought a lot of books. She spent a lot of money on books. And she had a lot of disappointments, clearly. But she did keep going, which is a good thing. And in the end, she was successful. But in the end, to get where she wanted to get to, she did work with a teacher. Now, you imagine if she'd worked with a teacher after 1 year, she would have been in Canada now for 5 years. So there is a cost there in that it took her so long. And she may still have been trying if she hadn't decided to work with my friend who's an IELTS teacher. So how long are you prepared to wait? 6 years or 10 years? I had a student, you may have seen my interview with her. She was a doctor from Germany, and she took the IELTS on and off over 10 years before she finally passed it and moved on with her career as a GP in New Zealand. Or are you going to wait forever? Or are you going to give up? It's a very long time to take a little exam. It's a long time for you. It might be a long time for your family to wait also. And how long are you going to wait to achieve those dreams? Both the 6-year student and the 10-year student in the end decided that the only way was to work with a teacher, one with my friend and one with me, and they were successful. But it took a long time to make that decision. But it could all be different if you did make that decision earlier. This is another story about a student who had taken the test, and I cannot believe this, 30 times. She was stuck at 6.5. So there are lots of students, and I describe them, you've probably heard me say this before, I describe them as 6.5 experts. But she wasn't asking me for help. She was simply complaining about the examiners and how they wouldn't give her the 7 that she needed. Why couldn't they give it to her? She'd taken it so many times, surely it was time for them to just say, okay, have the 7. But she failed to understand that she wasn't good enough for 7. And so the examiner would not give it. The examiner will only give it if you're good enough to get that score. And as far as I know, she's still trying to get this 7, this magical 7, and failing. But the sad thing is, she just did not want any help. She was determined to do it by herself. And that seems to me to be the wrong thing to do, because what was important was the fact that she got to Canada, not that she did it by herself. Learning a language you cannot do by yourself. You need other people to interact with. So she had a really strange sort of idea in her head about what this was all about. And sadly, it wasn't successful for her. So what did it cost her? Well, over 7,000 in money, but there were other costs. Time, how many years to take 30 tests, a cost of an opportunity. She didn't have the opportunity. I don't know what exactly, I can't remember. I think she was going to work and pursue her career. So she's put her career on hold for many years. And in some careers, if you don't get started, you'll never get to the peak. It might have been a cost for her family. They were waiting to begin this new life. her children's education. I mean, my student who waited 10 years, her children didn't get to New Zealand and into school there until they were well into their teenage years. So it's more difficult to adapt to a new system then. There might have been a health cost. I'm sure she must have been very stressed by all of this. But at the end of the day, she didn't want help. But in reality, a teacher would not have cost as much as $7,000, and she would have had fewer tests and saved a lot of time in the process. So why study completely alone? As I hope I've showed you, it's not necessarily cost effective. And it's also strange when learning a language is not a solitary activity. You need to interact with other people. So the one thing that it's not effective to do by yourself is learn a language. And I've mentioned this quotation attributed to Einstein, I believe, that if you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, it's a kind of madness. So in order to get a different result, something has to change. And the first two students I introduced to you both decided eventually, but it was after quite a long time, to hire a teacher to work with, and they passed the exam. The third student, who had taken 30 tests, was quite happy to go on and take perhaps another 5 or 6 or however many tests. But she was a very angry person, as you can imagine. So there were other costs to her as well. And as I say, I don't know if she ever managed to pass it because she wasn't looking for any help, sadly. Okay, so sorry stories, I'm afraid, but true stories. And I hope it's given you some food for thought. So if you are thinking about working with a teacher, I'm happy to talk to you, very happy to talk to you. Just leave me a message and we'll find a way to do that. If you are thinking about taking a course in your hometown or your home city, then do consider that seriously. Okay, so I'll leave it there and I'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.